Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls 3 PvP and another weapon showcase. This time I am using the Greatlance, which was given a buff in one of the more recent patches. Now, this weapon requires 21 strength and 16 dexterity in order to wield. It has a C-scaling in strength and a D-scaling in dexterity, and its physical base damage is 258. Now, this is a weapon that I was never a huge fan of prior to the patch. I'm still not overly fond of it now. And there are a few reasons for that I'll get into down the line, but we'll get started with the pros of the weapon. It has hyper armor on its two-handed attacks now, which is good. And it's got it on the skill as well, which is good. That was definitely a big improvement that the patch made, and probably is now the biggest pro of the weapon, in all honesty, because it's really what is this weapon's bread and butter. Without that hyper armor, you can get yourself into a fair bit of trouble. Now, on top of that, it has a relatively fast turtle poke. It's actually, I think, the fastest attack the weapon has, which is kind of sad in all honesty. I mean, I get it, it's a pike class weapon, it's a lance, it's a little bit slower than a spear, that makes sense. But having your shield poke be the fastest attack, that doesn't make the most sense to me. Other than that, last good thing I've got for the weapon is that it has a slightly decent combo ability, and when I say slightly decent, I mean you really have two combos that are extremely prevalently used, being your R1-R1 just like every other weapon in the game, and your R1 into L2 when two-handed, which will let you do your skill, and that's a great thing to do, especially considering you can continue doing your charge skill by hitting your right trigger, or R2, while you're in the middle of it. It will continue the length of the charge, and that's good. It'll let you deal a little bit more damage provided you have the stamina to manage it. But other than that, that's really all I've got for the pros. I'm not the biggest fan of this weapon because it has a lot of multi-hit attacks, which can lead you to getting yourself into some very bad situations. With multi-hit attacks in this game, you're basically asking for one of two things to happen. Either you're going to be parried, or I believe it's this fight here, there is a chance where you just literally slide off of your opponent at the start of your charge. Not the best thing to have happen, just saying. So, yeah, it is what it is. Other than that, though, a few other cons of the weapon. It's got a relatively slow startup for its attacks, and it lacks hyper armor on your one-handed moveset, which is, of course, disappointing. Now, the last thing that I have that's really a complaint about this weapon, and it's all relative, of course, it's really a minor thing, but it doesn't live up to its namesake. It doesn't live up to being a Greatlance. It's not like the Greatlance in Dark Souls 2. It's not like any of the lances in Dark Souls 2. Those were really good weapons. This one is okay-ish at best. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is due to the way that the counter strength works on this weapon. Even with a Leo ring, the counter strength on this weapon is a little bit lacking. I mean, we don't have an actual numerical value for what it is, but in Dark Souls 2, the Greatlance had a counter strength of 160, which was ridiculous. It was extremely good for dealing with spears. It was extremely good for going for those trades, going for counter hits. And with this weapon, you don't really have that. I feel like it just leaves the lance class, for lack of a better way of saying it, it leaves everything that was really great about it behind. And it's just a disappointment to me simply due to that fact. Either way, though, it's not a terrible weapon, it's just not great. And that's really all I've got for this thing, guys. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, then blah blah blah, typical YouTuber stuff, subscribe and whatnot. And I will see you guys next time.